Good morning. It's Monday, September 23rd, and welcome to another episode of Your Government is Openly Corrupt and Everyone's Just Cool with It. Today's democracy destroying news includes Trump's Border Czar getting caught on FBI tape taking 50 grand in a cava bag, 15 people dying in immigration detention while we rapidly expand the system, and Trump giving a rambling, incoherent, hateful speech in front of the UN yesterday. Also, Trump's administration is canceling America's hunger report right after cutting food stamps. But hey, at least we're not hiding the corruption anymore. We're just, doing it on camera and then shutting down the investigations. Very efficient. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button because we're tracking America's descent into obvious autocracy, kleptocracy in real time, and you're going to want daily updates on this shit show. So let's dive into today's Everything is Fine news cycle. So let's start out with the most embarrassing story possible. The President of the United States used his speech to world leaders to complain about not getting a construction contract 20 years ago. He was talking about the walls being plastic and he was going to put them in, make them marble. And it was only going to cost 500 million and he never finished the casinos he was working on. So I think the UN dodged a bullet there, Donald. So he gave basically a nearly hour-long speech to the United Nations General Assembly today that can only be described as, a petulant child, a diplomatic temper tantrum, and I mean that literally. So play that clip. Let's take a look at that.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well.
He referred to himself in the third person at the United Nations during a speech about global peace. He does this all the time, classic narcissistic behavior. And then he said, and I quote,
I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic.
So the President of the United States spent precious minutes of his UN speech complaining his flooring preferences to world leaders trying to solve wars and climate change. But wait, it gets worse. When the UN tried to help with his technical difficulties, like I guess the teleprompter broke and an escalator got stuck, Trump said, all I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle and then a teleprompter that didn't work. This man blamed the United Nations for, an escalator malfunction during his speech about why the United Nations is useless. Oh, and perhaps the biggest gem would be this one. Cut to this clip.
I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Because nothing says international cooperation like telling your allies they're doomed. He also called climate change the greatest con job ever perpetuated on the world at the UN Climate Summit, where most countries are trying to, not cook the planet. By the way, guys, at least almost the whole entire world is ignoring our new stance to climate change. So this is our president on the world stage complaining about marble floors and broken escalators while people are literally dying in wars around the globe. So drop a comment if you think UN speeches should include more real estate grievances. Apparently that's cutting edge diplomacy right now. But speaking of embarrassing, while Trump was complaining about escalators at the UN, more details emerged about his border czar getting caught in FBI tape accepting 50 grand in cash in a cava bag, which is a Mediterranean restaurant, because apparently even our corruption has to be artisanal now. So Tom Homan, the guy in charge of mass deportations, was recorded last September taking the money from undercover FBI agents who were posing as businessmen. In exchange, corruption, he promised to help get government contracts once Trump won. So $50,000 in a Mediterranean fast casual takeout bag. The FBI had this whole thing on tape, hidden cameras, audio recordings, the works. Homan literally accepted a bag of cash and agreed to sell government contracts before he even had the power to award them. But here's where it gets really good. The investigation was moving forward, FBI was building a case, and then Trump became president again, and suddenly the investigation just stopped. Trump's new FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche issued a statement saying they found no credible evidence of any criminal wrongdoing about a guy taking 50 grand on camera in exchange for government contracts. That's just the MO of this organization. And when reporters asked the White House about this, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said,
case, and does Homan have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters.
which is weird because literally everyone else, including multiple FBI sources and internal DOJ documents, says he absolutely did take the money. So either the entire FBI is lying or the White House is just making shit up. So here's a wild idea. The FBI recorded this interaction. They could just release the tapes. Problem solved. Same thing with the Epstein files. If Homan didn't take the money, the tapes will show that. If he did take the money, they will certainly show that too. But something tells me we're not even going to see those tapes anytime soon, just like with the Epstein files. It's all just a corrupt administration at this point. So drop a comment if you think government officials should be allowed to take briefcases full of cash without consequences. Apparently, that's a controversy now. Meanwhile, while Homan was allegedly selling future government contracts, the immigration system he now runs has a little bit of a death problem. 15 people have died in immigration detention since Trump took office. 10 of those deaths happened just between January and June. Georgia Senators John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock say that the highest rate in the first 6 months of any year on record. I'm really not surprised, guys, and nobody should be. The senators are demanding answers from Homeland Security Kristi Noem about the conditions in these detention centers because apparently don't let people die in custody is now a radical position. And this is happening while the Trump administration is rapidly expanding the detention system. More facilities, more detainees, more private contractor profits. You know, like Stephen Miller investing in jails so that he can get rich while he is a terrible person. You know what we're not expanding? Oversight, medical care, basic human decency. But sure, let's focus on whether the guy running this system took a bag of cash. Because the real crime here is definitely the bribery, not the actual people dying in government custody. 15 dead people is just the cost of doing business, but 50 grand in a cabbage bag? Now that's a scandal worth investigating. Oh, wait. Never mind. We shut that investigation down too. So let me know in the comments what you think is more disturbing. A border czar allegedly taking bribes or 15 people dying in detention centers while we expand this system. Because apparently we can't investigate either one. And speaking of shutting down investigations, the Trump administration just canceled America's annual hunger report. You know, because they don't want us to know people are hungry. You know, the one that tracks how many Americans can't afford food and kids that are food insecure, those types of studies. The USDA said the 30-year-old study was redundant, costly, politicized, and extraneous, and presented nothing more than subjective liberal fodder. Liberal fodder, like counting hungry people as a partisan activity now. So here's what that liberal fodder actually showed. 47.4 million Americans lived in food insecure households in 2023. Nearly 14 million of them are children. I know this administration doesn't care about kids. Have more kids, but you don't need to feed them, right? And food insecurity had increased from the year before as well. But here's the timing that's just chef's kiss perfect. Trump just signed legislation that will cut food stamps for 2.4 million Americans. And now he's going to shut down the report that would track whether more people go hungry as a result. What do you think, Donald? It's like setting your house on fire and then smashing all the smoke detectors so you don't have to hear them go off. The USDA claims food insecurity has remained virtually unchanged regardless of increased spending. But experts say that's bullshit. Makes sense. Last year's report showed hunger actually increased. So let me get this straight. We're cutting food aid for millions of people, and then we're stopping the collection of the data that would show whether that makes more people hungry. Because apparently the solution to hunger isn't feeding people, it's just counting the hungry people. Very efficient. Can't have a hunger problem if you don't measure hunger. Same logic as you can't have COVID if you don't test for COVID. So let's recap today's American experiment in democracy. We've got a lunatic president who talks to the UN like they're a bunch of children, and they're all secretly laughing at him because he looks like a little child with a AK-47, and nobody wants to say anything. We've got 15 people dying in detention centers while we, expand this perfect system. And we've got the government canceling hunger reports right after cutting the food aid. But hey, at least we're being efficient about corruption. Like, why have separate scandals when you can bundle them all together? So tell me in the comments what bothers you more, the brazen corruption, the deaths in detention, or the deliberate ignorance about hunger. Because apparently we can't address any of them. And if you want me to deep dive into how exactly you shut down an FBI bribery investigation, let me know because the process seems pretty important to understand. If this daily breakdown of government dysfunction is helpful, smash that like button and subscribe because tomorrow's news is definitely going to be worse. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another episode of Lies of the Orange Era. Like, subscribe, and let's document this authoritarian dictator and stop it now.